Well, good morning and welcome to those in attendance at the remote meeting of the local review body of Aberdeen City Council. Please note that the meeting will be recorded and published online for public access after the meeting. You're also reminded to note that we may have members of the public and press observing today's proceedings. Can members of the local review body leave their cameras on but mute their microphone when not speaking? As the local review body contains quasi-judicial business, members are reminded that it should not leave the meeting during consideration of any of the reviews. So this meeting has been convened in response to one request for a review of the decision taken by the appointed officer under the Council scheme of delegation. Members of the local review body have before them copies of the review documents as listed in notice calling the meeting. I will now ask Mrs McBain, the Assistant Clerk, to outline the procedure to be followed in the conduct of these reviews and to take a roll call of all members present.
Thank you. Members have the procedure note which was circulated with the meeting papers and is intended to set out the wider framework within which the review process operates. The first task for the review body is to come to a decision on whether the review documents contain sufficient information for the case to be determined without further procedure, and by that it is meant without further information or representations. The regulations governing the local review process require that all matters which the applicant intends to raise in the review must be set out in or accompany the notice of review. The focus of the review should be on the basis of what was before the appointed officer when a decision was made, and only in exceptional circumstances will new or additional matters be permitted to be taken into account. The circumstances in which additional matters can be taken into account are set out in the legislation and will be addressed by the LRB's advisors where relevant. This review should take the form of a structured discussion led by the chairperson to consider the matter set out in the notice of review before you, and I would conclude by drawing your attention in particular to points 10 to 12 of the procedure note. I'll just quickly note everybody's here. So Councillor McRae?
I am present.
Thank you. Councillor Alphonse?
Present.
Councillor Gregg?
Present.
Councillor Lawrence?
Present.
Councillor MacDonald?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. So turning to consideration of the review in respect of the decision to refuse the application for detailed planning permission for the installation of replacement two-storey extension to the front and rear, replacement rear garage and associated works at Glenthorne, 8 Golfview Road, Aberdeen, planning reference number 251059. We'll now hear from planning advisor in attendance, Ms Lucy Green, who will provide us with a brief description of the application proposal and a reminder of the reasons why the application was refused. I point out today that Ms Green attends today's meeting to provide us with the necessary professional planning guidance because she's not been involved in the earlier consideration of the application under review. Ms Green will not, however, be asked to express any view on the merits of the proposed development, and in effect, her role will be a neutral one, involving the provision of factual information and guidance only. Ms Green, over to you.
Thank you. Morning, members. I'll just share my presentation. Okay. This request for review was against an application refused under delegated powers for a single-storey replacement of existing single-storey extensions with two-storey extensions to the front and rear and erection of a garage. It was submitted with all the necessary information within the time limit of 3 months, and the applicant indicated in the review that there are no new matters raised, and that in terms of procedure they would be content for the review to proceed on the basis of the information submitted. So I'll continue and provide some background information before coming back to members to decide how to proceed. So these are the location plans. The house lies on the southern side of Bealdside, with the Deeside Way just here to the south, and then the golf course and the river further south. The report of handling and the submissions from the applicant note and talk about the consistent or otherwise building line with properties on the south side of Golfview Way, having their principal elevations to the south. And this is the site sitting within the other properties on Golfview Way, with the principal elevations to the south here. So this is the existing site plan, showing the existing house with rear outshoot, as the report calls it, and the single-storey modern conservatory extension to the front elevation here. The existing site is 0.13 hectares, so 1,300 square metres curtilage, with the house footprint being approximately 180 square metres, and the house dates from the early 20th century and is built in granite. There's the single-storey modern extension that I mentioned. So this is this proposed site plan. Existing areas of the building that would be removed are shown in green. So the conservatory would be removed, and the rear extension and the existing garage, and replaced with the garage and two-storey extensions to the front and rear. And this is just taken from Google Images, a 3D image showing the house here, with the others facing south along Gulfview Road on the south side. And this is the Deeside Way amongst the trees here. And this is from Street View on the Deeside Way, showing the house here. I mean, it's visible at this particular point. There are other points, other nearby points where it's not so visible, but just chosen that one for the presentation. And then an overhead image of the houses. So this is the application house here. These numbers seem to be wrong. That's number 10 and number 6, the application number 8. And that's the view from the north, showing the rear elevation of the house from Gulfview Road. So this would be removed and a two-storey extension erected. So turning to the plans, this is the ground floor plan, showing in green the down takings. So this is the rear proposed two-storey extension and the front. So the dimensions of the front extension, it would be 4.65 metres wide and a projection of 3.87 metres. And it would sit 2.4 metres in front of the existing gable. And then the rear extension projects 4.48 metres and is 4.97 metres wide. So similar to the existing here at the back, but a metre wider. And then the first floor plan, the proposed, and then the existing. And the roof level plan. Again, proposed here and existing. Just here. So this is the south elevation, the front elevation. And the materials are granite ashlar blocks to the ground floor level and timber cladding above. So just a note on this one, the height to the ridge of 7.7 metres and 6 metres to the eaves. And then looking at the side elevations. So this is the south side of the house, front elevation, and this is the rear to the north. And then the existing. You can see the end of the conservatory there on the rear outshoot. You can see the relationship between the existing gable and the proposed extension. And from the other side. So as proposed, this is the south side to the Deeside Way side of it. And then the north rear elevation to Golfview Road. Again, these granite ashlar to the ground floor and timber to the first floor. And some sections through the house as proposed and as existing. So this is through the rear extension to the north. And you can also see the garage, which sits at street level. The change in levels across the site. And this is a cross section through the front extension. And through the rear extension. Just here. And these are sections through the existing house. So that's the front to the south. And again, taken the other way through the house, existing house. And these are some renders showing the proposal. So this is the front south elevation with this is the new extension here. And the rear extension here. And that's the rear extension and from the west. And then the plans for the garage. So that would be finished in wet dash with a slate roof. So this is the reason for refusal. Basically, it's the impact on the character and appearance of the existing traditional house and the wider area. So in particular, the proposed two-storey extension to the front would significantly alter and overwhelm the principal elevation of the traditional historic dwelling, which is of high quality design. The combination of its height, width and projection would dominate and appear overbearing, together with the existing original ornate gable elevation. And owing to its position on the front elevation, combined with its scale, the proposed extension is in conflict with the guidance in the Householder Development Guide and the principles of good design and extensions to historic buildings set out in the Historic Environment Scotland's Managing Change in the Historic Environment Guidance on Extensions. I've added in a slide just showing what that is. So the proposed extension would significantly alter the principal elevation and undermine the relatively consistent and established building line of the dwellings on either side of the site, and therefore detract from the established character and appearance of the dwelling and the character, appearance and form of the wider area, and is therefore contrary to policies on design and homes, residential areas in NPF 4 and the Local Development Plan. And then to summarise the applicant's statement, it highlights that the report of handling confirms that the rear extension and the garage are acceptable. Also that there's no impact on residential amenity in terms of privacy, daylight, sunlight on the neighbours of any of the extensions, and also that it's not overdevelopment. That it wouldn't exceed the site coverage thresholds for overdevelopment. and that there are no outstanding issues in terms of trees. There would be no trees removed, drainage and biodiversity and open space. Also, that the front extension proposal has been reduced in scale and height during the course of the application. The report of handling details the extent of that change. Makes the point that the refusal is not supported by objective analysis, as the reductions requested by the case officer are not based on policy and would not alter the perceived massing, whilst the internal impact is significant. And finally, in terms of the conservatory, that is not the building line, it's non-original and lightweight, and that the site plan evidences that there are similar and greater projections existing on Gulfview Road. So at that point, I will hand back for members to decide how to proceed.
Thank you very much. So we now need to consider whether we have sufficient information in front of us today to take a decision on the application. Members are reminded that if you do not feel you have enough information to take a decision, you can request a further written information to be provided, hearings to be arranged, or a site visit to be undertaken. At the moment, I am happy and to proceed, but we'll quickly go around the room. Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, I'm happy to proceed.
Thank you. Councillor MacDonald.
Agree.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Happy to proceed.
Thank you. Councillor Alphonse.
Happy to proceed.
Thank you very much. As members feel that we have sufficient information, we'll now pass back to Ms Green, who will take us through the relevant policies and considerations for this review.
Thanks. Okay, so I'll move on to the policies. Sorry, just before I do that, I will note the points are the representations. It's just in my notes for this slide, so I'll just stay on this slide for the moment. So Cults, Bealdside and Milltimber Community Council raised various points. Firstly, that the front extension extends beyond the building line, especially to the east. They query whether trees on the boundary with number 10 would be removed, which it was confirmed in the report they would not. Overshadowing on number 10 is raised as a query. Timber cladding was felt to be uncharacteristic and in conflict with policies on design in residential areas. Then there were also 3 representations, 2 of support. One of those letters was sent out as a further additional item on the agenda, as it was missed in the original one. And then 1 objection, which raises points, including the description of the proposal as replacement is inaccurate, as the proposals of 2-storey extensions. The windows in the eastern elevations of the extensions would erode privacy within the garden and kitchen of the neighbouring property and conflict with policy 16G and NPF 4, and also design and residential area policies in the local plan. It raised impacts on overshadowing, and also that the rear extension is not in keeping with the character of the area. A daylight analysis is not included, and that there would be impact on trees, biodiversity and drainage. So I'll now move on to the policies, and these are the policies that are noted within the report. So policy 1, as we know, tackling the climate and nature crises, with this being given significant weight in all decisions, and also climate mitigation and adaptation also to be considered as part of all decisions. And there is the point there about development proposals, retrofitting measures in terms of reducing emissions. So policy 16 on quality homes. Householder development proposals will be supported where they do not have a detrimental impact on the character or environmental quality of the home and the surrounding area, in particular in terms of their size, design and materials, and also where they don't have a detrimental impact on neighbours in terms of their physical impact, the overshadowing or overlooking. I've put this slide in as the report does refer to policies on trees, and the policies obviously don't support the loss of trees, but there are no trees to be removed as part of this proposal. It's been clarified. Design policy includes the 6 qualities of successful places, and in particular, the quality 4 on distinctive. It supports attention to detail and looking at local architectural styles. So the site lies within an area zoned under this policy H1 residential areas, where new household development is acceptable in principle and will be approved, provided that it does not constitute overdevelopment. It doesn't have an unacceptable impact on the character and amenity of the surrounding area. There's no loss of open space, and it complies with supplementary guidance in this case. The householder guidance is the most relevant. Further policies that are referenced, D7 on granite heritage, where the council seeks to retain and reuse historic granite buildings. And then also parking policy, which references parking standards within the transport and accessibility guidance. In terms of the householder design guide, there are some general principles for all extensions, and that's that they should be architecturally compatible in design and scale with the original house and its surrounding area, with materials being complementary to the original building. And any extension or alteration should not overwhelm or dominate the original form or appearance of the dwelling, and should be visually subservient in terms of height, mass, and scale. Secondly, it refers to amenity of neighbours in terms of privacy, daylight, and general amenity, and those should not have a significant adverse impact. In terms of front extensions in particular, these will only be considered acceptable in situations where they would not impact negatively on the character or amenity of the original dwelling and the surrounding area. And it says that established building lines should be respected. Also, in assessing applications, there are a couple of points that would apply. Front extensions should be of a scale and design which is complementary to and consistent with the original dwelling. And it talks about porches there, which isn't particularly relevant in this case. In all cases, careful consideration will be given to the impact on adjacent property, the visual impact, and the extent of any building line and position of the adjacent buildings generally. So, Historic Environment Scotland's managing change is quite similar to that guidance in many ways. So this is a historic traditional building. It's not listed or within a conservation area, but this policy, this guidance still applies. So it says that most historic buildings can be extended sensitively, and then it states that extensions must protect the character and appearance of the building, should be subordinate in scale and form, should be located on a secondary elevation, and must be designed in high quality manner using appropriate materials. So finally, just a reminder that all applications should be determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise, and each application treated on merit. So the basis for the decision on this case, 2 main factors. Would the extension affect the character and appearance of the house and the surrounding area? And how would the extension impact the amenity of the area in terms of residential amenity of immediate neighbours? So overall, does the proposal comply with the development plan, or are there material considerations weighing for or against? and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Just in relation to the houses around that street, having a quick look on the Google Earth overview that you showed us, there seems to be a number of other properties close by that have seemed to have had extensions placed on them as well. I'm just wondering if we can have a wee look at that again.
Yes, just a moment. I'll just run through the various slides that show. Not sure which one in particular, but I think that the several properties were noted in the statement of review. So there's
because I think the one you're pointing to at the moment, spinning the camera around to the back does show a notable difference in the materials and rendering used of what looks to be the back extension to the house, which is on Golfview Road itself.
Well, I can go on to Google Maps itself. This one.
Yeah, that'll be the property there. Yeah, that looks like it's all been extended onto as well. Councillor Alphonse.
Thank you, convener, and thank you, Lucy. Yeah, can we go back, have a look in Golfview Road again? Sorry, round the other side. Yeah, so I agree with the convener that the house on the right is quite a huge extension, and the one next door on the right also has, it looks like a 2-story extension. And then the one further up, that's enormous. That's got a huge extension.
I think the reason for refusal refers to the extension on this side.
Yeah.
2-story, whereas it doesn't, the reason for refusal doesn't include the one to the rear.
I actually think that it complements the building, the extension. I can't see a major problem with that at all. And they're using granite on the ground floor and the timber on the top weathers and actually looks quite lovely and blends in with the granite, I feel.
Convener, I think we're straying into debate here rather than
sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
we are.
Sorry.
Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, convener. I mean, also on the rear extension on the north, there's a comment in the evaluation about the material and colour of the proposed doors and windows. So that's on page 47. So is it the case that those details have not been supplied, and should they be? What's the situation?
Yes, the report of handling does note that the colours and materials of the windows have not been supplied, and that if the proposal was to be approved, they would need to be conditioned.
Right, okay, got it. Okay, thanks for that, thank you.
One of the objections, it wasn't the community council one, it was the resident mentions there's going to be additional windows overlooking. What property? I'm guessing she's the one with the red roof. Potentially, it's putting an objection. But is there going to, there was a mention of 12 additional windows overlooking her property. I couldn't see that specifically outlined in the plans.
Let me just check, because which number it was that objected. Sorry. easier to go onto here.
Number 10 objected.
Okay, right. Yep, so that's that one. Yes, there are windows. Just pull up the elevations. Yeah, so it's the elevation to the east. So this would be the elevations facing eastward towards the objector. The report, so the trees would stay. I think that she queries whether they would be, but it was confirmed that they would stay.
And going by plans, the tree is to, I know I'm pointing at my screen, you can't see it, but that would be to the leftmost aspect of the proposed elevation is where there's a significant tree in that area. Yeah.
Please.
Okay. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you very much, convener. My question was around the report saying that the height had been reduced. Would I be correct in thinking that the original ones, which we haven't seen today, but that was just a reduction by about 0.7 of a metre at the front? And because my understanding is that there's no difficulty with the plans for the garage and the back extension onto Golfview Road. It's that front look and design that is at queries, is being queried. So would that be right, that has been dropped already by 0.7 of a metre?
Yes, let me just check the exact amendments. So the height of the front was reduced by 0.7 in terms of the ridge height and 0.27 at the eaves. I don't know if you can read that. So yes, the ridge height of the front southern extension was reduced by 0.7 of a metre. It was originally on the ridge. I think that site plan shows it on the ridge still.
Can I ask, is that significant in terms of the full height of the building? I'm just trying to get that clear in my mind.
Right, if I pull up the so originally the height of this was close to the ridge, so it's reduced by that, and the eaves have reduced a bit less, but yes, it was at that height before. So by reducing, it's obviously less than the gable. It projects further out than the gable.
Thank you. And my last question, convener, is do we know if there was any consideration to replace the timber with a more granite looking material or granite?
That is not noted in the amendments, and the report doesn't sort of express a concern about the materials. I'm not aware whether there was discussion.
Thank you.
Before bringing in Councillor Alphonse, in terms, there's a few mentions of overshadowing. Has there been a report done for that? I couldn't see anything specifically jumping out in any of the supporting documents.
the report of handling that notes that the case officer did an analysis on daylighting, and that the two factors of the distance between the extension and the boundary and foliage on the boundary, etc., meant that there wasn't an impact in terms of daylighting and sunlighting.
Thank you for confirming. Councillor Alphonse, your question?
Thank you, convener. Yes, Lucy, I just wondered, is there a granite boundary wall between these properties? And if so, what height would it be?
Let me see if that's noted.
I was just thinking about the objection from the next door neighbour, because the windows that are looking onto them from the ground floor are obviously look like they're ceiling to floor, but the upstairs ones are all Velux windows, I think.
Yeah.
I didn't see the...
Look on the site plan. See if it's noted. It's difficult to see with the planting along them.
Yeah.
Just to be helpful for there, it is noted owing to topography of the site, the dwelling will sit 2.3 metres lower with a 1.1 metre high boundary wall for screening the development. So there is a wall in there, but 1.1 metres high.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions at this point, members? Not seeing any hands. Okie dokie. So in accordance with the procedural note circulated, the local review body will now discuss and decide the matter in which the review is to proceed. I would highlight that all representations relating to the case have been considered and taken into account. Anyone wishing to enter into any sort of debate on this one? Any comments? At the moment, I am along the lines of minded to overturn officers' recommendations. I note the point on amenity, but I don't feel there is a strong detriment to neighbouring amenity just with what we have received in terms of overshadowing, overlooking distance, the trees, the topography, etc., in that area, and in terms of character and appearance. Although there is the extent, we're not discussing one of the extensions because obviously that is similar to the extension to the front. I don't think that the appearance or character of what has been proposed in the double height is anything further to what they've already had in terms of the conservatory to the front of the property. It's replacing, it's not extending, it's not going further, it's actually narrower, it's just taller, and it's not protruding any further out into the line of character of the house at the front of the south elevation anyway. But I'll take in Councillor MacDonald.
I would respectfully disagree, convener. I do think that the traditional build of the house, even if that extension that was put on in the 1980s, is probably past its sell-by date. But I don't think that the architectural style, the size, the design, or the materials are what I would expect to see at the front of a traditional property like that. And I would have hoped that the applicants could have changed that so that the impact on the character and the appearance of the traditional house and the wider area as well from that aspect could have been more sensitively put together, and on that basis I would be upholding the decision of the original planner's decision to refuse the application as it stands at the moment. But, you know, taking into consideration that parts of the plans that were brought forward are okay. And I would agree with what you say as well about perhaps the overlooking and so on. I don't think to that extent it's a bad plan, but I just think for those reasons, I think it needs to be looked at again in terms of the front character of a traditional granite house here in Aberdeen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to enter? Councillor Gregg.
Yeah, convener. Yeah, I mean, I share those concerns about the proposal. It's clearly visually a considerable departure from the original building design. I think we're basically being asked to consider whether it's a sympathetic design, whether it's sensitive to its environment. This new extension is of a very considerable volume. It is a very large add-on to the building, and I do find that it is, if it was of a more traditional design, it might be acceptable, but I just find it is incompatible with that early 20th century design look. So I think it is out of keeping with the with its context. There was I mean, it's been very helpful that there's been negotiation. The gable height has apparently been reduced, and I was finding it difficult really to detect a major reduction just by looking. I appreciate that there is less, but it's still quite an overwhelming look. So I do think it is an anomalous design within that row of housing, and I'd like to have seen it integrate visually more effectively. So I think the planners had a very difficult job in processing this one. I think it's on the basis of that incompatibility of design, and combined with the massing, that's of concern. So I would be siding with the officers on this one. Thanks.
Okay, so Councillor Alphonse.
Thank you, convener. I agree with you. I'd be quite happy for it to go ahead. I think it's been quite sympathetically designed, actually, and I think it's complementing the area. You know, compared to other houses, I think it's in the area. It's, you know, just look a couple of doors up. You know, it's the one 2 doors up looks nothing like it had been when it had been built. You know, so. No, I would agree that I would go with the convener's view too. Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, I'm swithering sort of this house, along with quite a lot of the Deeside that follow the line, the old line. The front of the house faces the railway line, and the back of the house faces the road. So realistically, you would expect the roadside to be the front of the house, and in my book, there's no railway there anymore, so it's the back of the house. So I'm sort of kind of the lean to go with yourself, convener, and say that it isn't really that overbearing. So I would go with that.
Thank you. Yes, I did have a think about that myself. The house seems to be turned, and where we've dealt with these sort of reviews in the past, and a lot of applications, it tends to be the frontages of the property that we're dealing with that are on the roadside. And we don't tend, not that we don't tend to be concerned with what's round the back, but it's obviously not as visible to the public. Therefore, we have taken the various things into consideration, and that's what played on my mind in this regard. Is the bulk of the extension that's being contested at this stage by the officer is into technically the front of the house, but is in the rear garden. So that's where I've been a little bit conflicted on that. But with that, I think we are 3 to overturn and 2 to uphold at this point. Therefore, the local review body has therefore by majority agreed to overturn the decision of the appointed officer at this time. We'll just come back to Ms. Green to see if there is any conditions we want to place on this, but obviously that's been overturned on the amenity and the character and appearance. Obviously, we're not too concerned about that at the moment. But Ms. Green, over to you for any conditions that need to be placed.
I would recommend the materials and colours of the window and the colours of the render to the garage as conditions.
Okay, and we're happy for that to be delegated to officers for a decision to be taken on that. Okay, thank you very much, members. That brings us to the end of today's meeting. Please note a decision notice from today's meeting will be issued to the applicant or agent in the forthcoming days. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.